I've heard a lot of people having sex on the cup.
All right, welcome back to Ducks Morning Brew. Got a Monday edition after a full week of Ducks hockey. We've got games against Pittsburgh and St. Louis from the weekend. We're mostly going to focus on the St. Louis game. Just quick notes, the game against Pittsburgh. I thought the Ducks played really well, but Casey DeSmith was the factor that got the Penguins the win in that one, a 1-0 win for them. Really tough building to go in. The Penguins are beat down a little bit, but now they've got Crosby back, and I thought it was a really good game for Anaheim, just a really tough one to really get anything out of the way DeSmith was playing in that game. The Ducks had their chances, and DeSmith made a couple great late saves, and the Ducks had that push with with Gibson out of the net, and they couldn't get one in. But good effort nonetheless. If you're going to lose, I think losing that way in a really good fight to try and get a point at least out of the game is not the worst way to go, especially against a team like the Penguins. But the Ducks bounced back last night with a really big win against the St. Louis Blues, both teams coming off back-to-backs. The Blues really wasn't a tough back-to-back for them. They played at home on Saturday night and home again on Sunday night, so not your traditional back-to-back like the Ducks had with travel, where they had to go from Pittsburgh to St. Louis. And they really dominated the game as it went on. Like, the first period was in the Ducks' favor, but relatively even. The second, the Ducks started to take control, and then in the third period, they really took control of the game, and it was a lot closer, really, because of the play of Jeff Gillies in net, which was pretty impressive for him getting his first start of the year to come in and play the way he did. We'll get into that game a little bit more, and of course, Troy Terry getting back to form and being the Ducks' best player by a mile last night is really the reason the Ducks came out with 2 points in that one. Mason McTavish and Olen Zellweger officially named to Team Canada after the final cuts were made last night. So we'll dive into that, what roles they could play on the team. But it's great news for the Ducks to have both of them. McTavish almost felt like a lock, but Zellweger, the way he played this year, the way he played at selection camp, putting up a couple points in 2 games, he deserved to be there, and all the credit to him for the way he's played. And then we look at a bit of a rumor. I'm not gonna get too hyped up on this one. Bleacher Report put out some possible destinations for Claude Giroux if the Flyers are really going to pack it in and sell this season. And surprisingly, Anaheim was on the list. We'll get into the reasons why and what that could look like, and if the Ducks would even be interested in a trade like that. But we'll dive into that a little bit more. But first up, we've got last night's game to get into. So as we know, the Ducks came out last night with a 3-2 overtime victory thanks to this penalty shootout that you can see here. Penalty shot that you can see here from Troy Terry. Got on a breakaway. He said after the game he was pretty happy that Perunovic hooked him because he was pretty tired. It's one of those situations where, for a defender, it's such a tough call to make, right? I almost think it's always better to just put some pressure on him and let him try and take the shot in overtime instead of hooking him to give him a free shot, some rest in a one-on-one with the netminder, especially a player like Troy Terry. But I mean, we'll take it. If you can get Terry a one-on-one with the netminder, I feel like more often than not he's going to put the puck in the back of the net, and he pulls his classic move, the fake to the forehand, goes to the backhand, and just absolutely roofs it over Gillies. And Terry this year has shown, he's taken his hands and his stick handling ability to the next level. It's been a complete masterclass for Terry over the last few games. He had some great chances against the Pittsburgh Penguins and just couldn't put the puck in the back of the net. It just wasn't his night. DeSmith was having one of the games of the season for him. But for Troy Terry to break out in this game, obviously he got the game tying goal late in the third period, and then the game winner in overtime. It's nice to see him get back on the board. He's got 17 points now. 17 goals and 28 points, I believe, on the season. I have to double check that. 28 points in 29 games, so almost a point per game season so far from Troy Terry. Still firmly in, I believe, the top 15 in scoring across the entire league, despite going, I wouldn't say cold for a bit, but the points weren't there over the last 5 games, but he was still playing well. I mean, he was still putting on a show with his stick handling ability, and I think not having to drag around a line of Vinny Lettieri and Sam Steele definitely helps. Getting Ryan Getzlaf back puts some of the pressure off Troy Terry to do everything, and he can kind of just focus on himself and get into the right areas. And that's what we saw for the first goal tonight, and getting in front of the net and getting the rebound off Cam Fowler's chance and putting it in the back of the net. So really nice to see him get going. the play you can see here from Sam Carrick. I thought he's looked really good this year. He's been kind of the fourth liner we've been hoping for a while, a guy who can impact both ends of the ice in a positive manner. We've been saying it for a while on the show that Sam Carrick should be a guy that sticks around longer than he has been for the Ducks over the last couple of years, so it's really nice for him and really nice to see that he's getting a longer run out for the Ducks. I think right now, when you look at all the fourth liners they have available, and you count Sam Steele in that mix, Derek Grant, Nick Delorier, I guess Vinny Lettieri, even though he's been playing up in the lineup, Sam Carrick for me has been the best of all of them. He just seems to always bring a positive every time he's out on the ice. So really nice to see him contribute to Buddy Robinson getting his first goal as a Duck. And then I think Cam Fowler, we'll dive into this on another show, but he's been excellent this year. That was a great rush up the ice to lead to the chance that got the rebound for Troy Terry. So really, really good play from him. And all around, another great performance from the Ducks against a very good team. I know the Blues are shorthanded, and I mentioned this on Twitter before the game. No Robert Thomas, no David Perron, no Binnington, no Falk. They're missing a few other guys as well. But, it's still a tough place to go into. They've still played some good hockey despite losing so many players. And for the Ducks to go in there and dominate the way they did and get the 2 points, sit top of the Pacific Division, 30-plus games into the season is not something I thought, a position I thought they would be in, or I think anybody thought they would be in. So really, really, really good team win, and a nice breakup coming this week. We had 5-7 last week, only 2-7 this week, and I think the first game's on Wednesday against Arizona, or Seattle. Seattle on Wednesday, Arizona on Friday, I believe, is the 2 games this week. So a nice break, well-deserved rest for the Ducks. 2 easier games, if you want to call it that, both at home this week. So just a nice kind of reward for going 3-1-1 on the road with some tough buildings to go into. So I like this performance from the Ducks. I think everything's clicking. You've got Terry back in form. You've got Zegras, Milano, and Raquel playing really well. Getzlaf's back, and you still got guys like Adam Henrique that you can add back in this lineup. So a lot of fun, big win. Love to see it. And as we mentioned at the top of the show too, Mason, McTavish, and Olen Zellweger officially made Team Canada's roster for the World Junior Championship. I mean, McTavish was as close to a lock as you can get. He's likely going to be the first-line center for this team. He just brings something that not a lot of other guys do in terms of just his sheer size and physical ability. And his play on both ends of the ice is just something that you usually don't see in players that are eligible to still go to the World Juniors. Usually those guys are in the NHL at that point. And I think McTavish was good enough to stick around in the NHL all season, but the Ducks wanted him to go back, play center. I think it was still the right decision, and now for him to go to this tournament and play such a big role for Canada and be a number 1 center, likely play with some really excellent skilled wingers, he has a chance to walk away with tournament MVP. I mean, he's not the most skilled player in the tournament, but he doesn't have to be because he does everything else right. He'll probably be the leading goal scorer, I would imagine. He's going to be put with some really good players, and that's going to bode well for him. We've seen McTavish over the last couple of years. He hasn't played on the greatest teams in Peterborough. I ended up going over and playing pro, and that's a really tough transition. So this will be the first time I think we get to see McTavish play with, the best of his age group, other than the U18 tournament, and he did really well there. And this will be on a much wider watch stage. So I think there's going to be a lot of appreciation for Mason McTavish after this tournament is over, especially if Canada wins gold, and he's a big part of that. And I would imagine when it does get announced that he's part of the leadership group for Canada as well. Just the experience that he brings is much more than a lot of other guys on this team. I think maybe only Cole Perfetti has as much pro experience as Mason McTavish. So it's going to be a lot of fun. And then obviously Olen Zellweger. That one's not a surprise the way he's played this year. But if you had to ask people, I think in the summer, whether Olen Zellweger would be on this team, I think it would have been a long shot at best when you look at some of the names that were left off. But the way he's played this year, he's been the best defenseman in the Western Hockey League this year. He's continued that pace that he had in 11 games last year, where he put up 13 points, and now he's got 27 in 20 games this year. Had that 5-point night about a week and a half ago, and went to Canada's camp and just really had a good 3 or 4 days where he impressed every time he was out there, which is what you need to do, and it's what Zellweger has done all year. And I think for Hockey Canada as well, his performance at the U18s last year, along with McTavish, he was one of the best players, probably the best defenseman on the team. And they'll remember that and what he's done, in a Canada jersey. And I think that's kind of proved to benefit him in this selection here. So I'm not sure his role yet. I think he could be a guy who starts as a fifth or sixth defenseman and just ends up playing his way into a bigger role. He might not get power play time right off the bat. It might be power play 2, a second or third pair guy. But as the tournament goes on, I really do think this larger ice and playing against some of these opposing teams where he's got a little bit more space out there, he's going to make things happen with his speed and his hockey IQ, and he's going to become a really big player for Canada. So, as much as I'm excited to watch Mason McTavish, I'm really excited to see what Olen Zellweger can do on a big stage like this. Obviously all the talk's been about his his age and the fact that he was only 6 days away from being eligible for this year's draft, and if he was eligible for this year's draft, he could be a top 15 in the draft upcoming. He went in the second round of last year's draft, so it's become a really, really smart, good pick for the Ducks where they got him. And I'm really excited to see both of these guys play at the World Juniors. Obviously, I'll be rooting for Canada, but the U.S. camp just started too, and Pastujov and Moore are there currently, and I believe they're there until Wednesday or Thursday. So it'll be interesting to see if they make it too. I think Pastujov has a good chance. Moore we'll have to see, but could potentially see another dynamic team for the U.S. to watch, and a dynamic player in Pastujov to watch for Team USA, just like Zegras was last year. And then obviously McTavish and Zellweger for Canada. So it'll be a lot of fun. I always look forward to this tournament every year, and it's always nice to see some Ducks players play a big role on some of the teams that can go for gold. And the last one we're going to talk about, I wouldn't say briefly talk about it. Steven and I mentioned this on the weekly show. We skipped it. We didn't have enough time to cover it. And I don't want to feed into the rumors too much because it is a little out there in something that could happen. But Bleacher Report put out an article about Claude Giroux and some possible destinations for him if the Flyers were going to pack it all in. The Flyers are not having a great season this year, and if they do want to move in a different direction, Claude Giroux is a pending unrestricted free agent at the end of the year. So there are some talk out there that they could move him in his $8.275 million cap hit and look to not rebuild but retool and add some younger assets to their team. And the reason they had Anaheim as a team that could be a landing spot for Giroux is because they're one of the only teams that are in contention right now that can add that full salary hit without the Flyers having to either take back a contract or retain anything on that deal, which could be more enticing to the Flyers if they're going to look to add to replace Giroux and try and still be competitive for this year. I don't think it ends up happening. I don't think he ends up getting moved. I just can't imagine the Flyers move on from their captain and a guy who's been there for his entire career. But if the Ducks really do want to go all in and go for it this year, there aren't too many players better that you can add than Claude Giroux. But it likely is a pure rental. He's 33 years old. It's not really, in my opinion, the move the Ducks should be making right now. I think they should still be selling off some of their unrestricted free agents instead of going out and buying one. And even with Giroux as a rental, he's still going to cost a lot of money. He's playing some great hockey. And again, the name and the pedigree that he brings, that's going to command a lot even for a rental. And you're looking at probably a first-round pick and someone like Maxime Comtois, potentially more on top of that, a prospect as well. And as much as I'd love to see the Ducks go for it and go far in the playoffs, I just don't know if that's the best move. Because I don't think you can bring in Giroux and move Raquel and Manson and Lindholm. You're making the decision at that point to go for it and be competitive this year and sacrifice some of your younger assets to do that. It would be a lot of fun to see Claude Giroux play. Like a line Steven put in front of me yesterday was Getzlaf centering Terry and Giroux, and then obviously you have Zegras, Milano, Raquel, and Henrique, Lindstrom, Silfverberg. That top nine is very good, and they've all played well this year. It would be a lot of fun to watch. I can't deny that, but I just don't know if that's the best direction to go to. But I wanted to put it out there because it was kind of an interesting, not rumor, but proposal of something we never thought we'd be talking about, the Ducks being good and potentially adding players like Claude Giroux at the deadline instead of selling. So it's a bit of a fun situation to be in, to start looking at some of these potential trades and what the Ducks could do if they wanted to compete this year, because it's not something we thought we'd be doing. We thought we'd be talking about, which we are, but we thought we'd be talking about Raquel getting traded and Manson and Lindholm and other guys and Henrique and the Ducks adding picks and prospects and going for a first overall pick. So it is a bit of a weird year. We're adjusting on the fly and getting used to this team, being good. Right now, sitting top of the Pacific Division, it's playoff hockey's in sight. It's wild. I can't believe we'd be saying that, but we might have playoff hockey this spring, which will be interesting to see what the Ducks do at the deadline. Steven and I talked about that on the weekly show, so make sure you go check that out. Talked about what Jeff Solomon will do at the deadline, if he'll overreact to the Ducks' success or if he'll stick to the rebuild plan. We talked about the Zegras Milano goal of the season, goal of the decade, whatever you want to call it, and the comments from John Tortorella and Rick Tocchet in regards to that goal and if it's bad for the game. That was a big discussion we had on the show, so if you want to check that out, make sure you check out the first half of the show for that. And Steve and I also recorded a Patreon show on the weekend where we broke down some big trades that we proposed from teams around the league, as well as some potential Ducks trades we could see, like big high-end franchise-altering trades. That will be out on our Patreon later today, so if you want to check that out, it's patreon.com/forevermighty. But appreciate you guys coming out today. We won't, again, be having a Ducks Morning Brew tomorrow. I'm back in the office on Tuesday, so I will be back on here on Wednesday to preview the game against the Seattle Kraken and break down any of the incoming news surrounding the Anaheim Ducks. So appreciate you guys coming out, and we'll see you then. Take care.